Welcome to a Saturday live stream. And I'm going to start out by saying Windows is stupid. Every time I run into dumb Windows problems, I just like, why does it do this? Matter of fact, I am slightly, well, no, not confused. I just know that's how it works now. I seen some type of like pop-up ad and I'm like, really Windows 10? It's an advertising platform now. It's something from Microsoft, but their store stuff that comes up. I'm like, who wants that? No one, like, that used to be the junkware we got rid of on new PC builds forever ago, was the crapware that companies used to put in there. And you're like, oh man, you got to clean up all the crapware from this brand new computer you bought from the big box store. Now it's like Microsoft's like, we're going to include crapware in a clean load of Windows. It just, it's ugly. It's messy. Can't help that right now, and I'm not solving that problem. I only use Windows for my one system. Like I test with Windows a lot. I have VMs, but they're all for testing. For my actual workflow, I do have a Windows system because it does seem to, for now, handle things like this little, I can't pick it up. Well, can I? No, that's going to get tangled. My little Stream Deck that ties to OBS. That integration works really well. It's not so well using OBS and Stream Deck in Linux. It's a little bit more flaky. I know there's some workarounds, but workarounds is the problem. I'm not a big fan of workarounds if I don't have to use workarounds. But because this is a dedicated Windows system just for this, it just boots up. It has OBS running for ingestion of all the different cards, and it works. Except for when it needs an update. And I don't know what it does now. One of the updates that loaded makes it pause when it logs in. And I'm like, I'll sort this out later. It's not a high priority because it's not like it only pauses for about 5 seconds and then logs in, but it used to not do that. So, oh, man. Would I ever consider using a Mac for desktop? I've been using Linux too long, and Mac doesn't offer anything better, but I do have a MacBook Air, and we had to buy it for testing reasons because we needed an M1 a few years ago when it came out, and we were doing some work. We have a bunch of clients that have M1s, so I bought a MacBook Air, the base model, cheap as I could find it, and we used it for a bunch of testing before we onboarded a client and to validate some ideas. Well, it was just hanging out. And I said, let me try it. And I still don't love it, but it's usable. And the thing I like about the MacBook Air M1 is it's got a nice keyboard. It's actually not that expensive. It's right around that $1,000 mark for a high quality laptop. I'm saying I'm not saying $1,000 is nothing. It's definitely an expensive laptop if you were to buy. I mean, obviously, right now the older M1s aren't worth as much, but I can't find much in the PC world that has the battery life it has, a nice keyboard that's backlit, and a lightweight design, and no. To me, I treat it like a Chromebook. I like the fact that there's no fans on it. There's not much out there in the marketplace because everyone, and for good reasons, builds the higher quality laptops with a lot more horsepower. I don't need the horsepower. Matter of fact, the M1 is still what I'm using for my laptop because I just got back from a conference. I use the M1 to type all my notes on. I use my M1 to reply to all my emails, reply to forums, reply to Slack messages from work and other areas that I'm in. So it's a great, to me, it's a Chromebook. As a full desktop, I don't think I like it. Let's see. That's your issue with Linux as desktop. Everything is a workaround alternative. They're doing great for power users, terrible for most home users. Yeah, it depends on what your use case is. Honestly, I think the majority of home users, not to mention, it seems like everyone, it's kind of weird to me, but my non-technical friends don't even bother with computers. They just go, I have a phone. Why would I want a computer? And that's foreign to me, obviously. But I think a Chromebook is probably adequate for the majority of people who are using things today. Even businesses are starting to, and we've seen companies move to Chromebooks because everything's a web app. And if you're a company, a modern company, I should say, not running a bunch of legacy older software that has to be installed, Yeah, Chromebooks are even a choice for those people because once everything goes to the web browser, suddenly it doesn't matter. My wife's company uses all Macs. Matter of fact, all the staff gets the newer, was the M3, the later MacBook Airs. That's what all the salespeople like my wife get. They all get that. They have all the proper controls on it, and everything's a web app. They don't, other than loading Slack, there's not much loaded on her computer at all for work. Workarounds and band-aids often become permanent. I see why they often uh, well, I so I don't really have that many workarounds with Linux for me, but I'm you like because DaVinci Resolve runs on Linux, and that's what I use for my video editing. Because DaVinci Resolve supports Linux, that's the only one. And I don't know that it's a workaround. I do have a script on boot that sets all the sound devices, but I think you have to do the same thing in Windows. All my creator friends that use Windows seem to have a whole plethora of problems with having. So if you're a creator with a lot of sound inputs, you sometimes have problems figuring out those sound inputs. There's a script in Linux that I have on boot that sets all the sound inputs to exactly what I want. So even if I were to goof with them, I can rerun that script to put them exactly back where I want them. I don't know if that's a workaround or not. It solves a problem that I know exists in Windows too. Yeah, Linux is not for your average user. And, this comes up from time to time because we manage thousands of computers. They're like, well, don't you push clients to Linux, Tom? Because you like Linux. I'm like, no, we manage thousands of Windows computers because there's not good alternatives for the software you need to run. And most of the management and tooling that is good, not kludged together, is built for Windows. If you need central user management, yes, I know LDAP exists. Yes, I know there's ways to do it, but it's not as robust as Active Directory. Love or hate Active Directory as a central authority or Entra ID, and depending on how you do the integrations, you do have good central management for it. Yeah, the life on the MacBook is wild. It's, I mean, if I had a $2,000 budget, I don't know what laptop I would buy in the x86 world that would match the M1. That's the part that kind of drives me nuts. Like I would trade. I'm really love the framework laptop. I want one, but it actually, for all I'll spend, is a lesser laptop than the M1, and that's the part that drives me nuts. I mean, granted, it's faster if you were to do, to an extent, depending on your use case. The M1 is fast enough for what I need. So if there was a save me the money and put a lower processor in there and give me passive cooling, I could probably swing it. Right now, I just don't have a good reason to justify buying. I will probably buy a framework when I buy a new laptop, but it's hard because the M1 works so well. Hello, all the way from Kenya. Awesome. Yeah, Windows ARM and Microsoft Chromebooks. There's ways you can load, and I just don't feel like doing it. There's ways to put some of, you can take the better Chromebooks and reload them with Linux, and maybe that makes sense. I have multiple applications I want to manage all in one single dashboard. I don't really know. I mean, I stick everything in Home Assistant. I don't know if that helps you. I guess I don't know what that dashboard would look like. If I attach a cloud gateway to 2 unmanaged switches, can I manage all devices on those switches, or they have to be UniFi switches? I guess it depends on what you mean by manage them. They will show up if you have. I actually have an example I'll pull up here. If you go into, which one would it be? Let me share the screen here. There we go. This is what it would look like, I guess you could say. So you see, it doesn't, this switch, this firewall is not managing any switches, but you see all the clients. So here's all the clients, but you can see it doesn't have any switches. And if you go to the topology, it thinks everything's attached to here because it can't see there are switches. You can't plug that many devices into this. but it doesn't see them. So yes, I think is the answer. Yeah, and this is the problem. I don't use my laptop for real work, I guess you could say. I mean, depending on how you define work. I don't need the horsepower in it. I've actually stared and looked at going, could I use a Raspberry Pi? You know what I mean? It's just, yeah. Hey, thanks for what you're doing. pfSense at TrueNAS running things. Awesome. Good to hear that. I like some of the XPS ones. They're not bad. But I really got a thing for the framework laptops. I don't mind spending extra for quality. I have a few extra dollars. I don't mind spending it. I like what they're doing at framework. I'm a big fan of the framework one. I know it costs me more. I know there's cheaper solutions, but I want to support what they're doing. I like that it's modular. Um, I mostly use Tailscale because it's built into pfSense, so it makes it really easy. One of the things I do, and I've talked about this a few times, because I use like SyncThing, for example, and mentioning like I was at a conference, all the notes I take at the conference go right into a tool called LogSeek, and I'm synchronizing them immediately as in real time because Tailscale is just an always on VPN. So even though my laptop is, with me at a conference, whatever Wi-Fi I'm attached to, from some open Wi-Fi I was at for there, or if I use my hotspot, it's nice having Tailscale just instantly sync and then SyncThing syncing and all my notes being like confidently backed up. Because I might do a video soon about how I do my backups. There seems to be a lot of questions around this. I look at data risk in hours of time it took me to do the data. So I spent some time at a conference typing a lot of notes. There is a mental in my head, problem of like, that's a lot of notes, not a huge amount. But the more notes I typed, the think about the risk of losing all those notes. I went to the conference, I acquired the knowledge, I put it all here. I don't really want to lose this. What if my laptop fell out of my bag, dropped it somewhere, or just plain out died? So I love real-time synchronization of all my data. So there's this constantly going. So that's one of the reasons I like using Tailscale is because it's being synchronized wherever I'm traveling to. Yeah, the new ARM stuff on Windows is really, I think there's hope because as that becomes popular, someone will Linux it, and then I'll be really happy. Yeah. No, you're not going to get VLANs managed. I would you may or may not get VLANs managed with unmanaged switches. They will not be managed properly at all. So but some switches will let a VLAN pass. Some will not. It kind of depends on the unmanaged switch. Do all the features in unified gateways work with external DHCP and DNS? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to use the built-in. Matter of fact, more specifically, if you're running an Active Directory environment or a business environment, you generally want your Active Directory to be the truth of DNS and your DHCP server. So you can absolutely use third-party with the DHCP and UniFi. Raspberry Pi through everybody's workstation. Hey, why not? Do you know what the best wall scope tools use? I don't really know. I haven't looked in those in a while, so I don't have a lot of opinions on them. Can you please set up a static tunnel that leads virtual machines at the main server? That I have a video on doing a tunnel. Look for my CGNAT video. Maybe that's what you're looking for. The HA patching is a little tricky because you still have some levels of disruption. I mean, you can fail it over between there, but it goes into single mode for a minute. I think it will cause I think you have a minimal state reset when that happens. So I don't know that it does it's been a while since I looked to see if they fixed it, but I believe there's some state resets that happen when you switch between them when you're patching. So these state resets do not happen in normal HA modes because it keeps the states synced, but I believe the states lose sync and there's not a way to resync them when you're patching to different versions. I'd have to look through the documentation. It's been a minute since I've looked at that. Usually I just take them out of HA and reboot them on a weekend. There's only a few updates a year to pfSense, so it's not that big of a deal. What am I doing wrong with log seek and sync thing? I get many sync conflicts. If you're using it with somebody else who's editing at the same time, or you're not staying in sync, this would be an example. I was at CodeMash. I created a file called CodeMash. I put a bunch of data in there. If I don't have it syncing in real time, and then I go and edit that on another system, I'm going to get a sync conflict because I edited them while it wasn't syncing. So I don't really have a solution for that. I always make sure I'm not doing that is my solution to it. It's not a great solution. And it's the one downside of LogSeek is that until they come up with their new version, which then goes back to not being file-based, if it's database-driven where it can solve all the syncing conflicts, that is better. But I don't really run into them because I'm never editing on two systems that are out of sync. I don't know if SyncThing will necessarily get more router support. That's kind of a maybe. I have a virtual machine on a different PC to mimic our server at work, but when I create a tunnel on the UniFi portal, it automatically sets the IP of the minister. I don't know what you're doing. It's probably a better forum post, so I have a better idea of what you're doing so I can guide you. Yeah, I know there's some missing. There's the Android app. There's some developer problem with it. I don't use LogSeek on my phone, so I don't like typing on my phone at all. Least favorite thing. So I don't know a good solution. Someone said there's a third party. If you go in the SyncThing forums and Reddit, someone said there's a third party that has an app. I think VLAN 1 for management in the olden days of Cisco would cause you a lot of problems. It's not the same problem as it used to be. The other problem is people over-index on where they think the security threats are. They seem to get overly worried about, oh my gosh, someone's going to plug into my network. That just is not it is a threat. If you are really worried about physical access to your network, then that's a challenge. Lock things up better. Maybe you do want to make sure you've locked down every port or not have it. But, even if you, because some people say, well, never use VLAN 1. That way, when they plug in, they don't know what VLAN. But if I'm here to really get into your network, I will plug into a port, use promiscuous mode to sniff what traffic comes out of that port. So the best thing to do is turn the port off. There are port taps, and you can say, well, I notice you plugging in. Would you notice if I blipped your network, or would you go, I don't know. Do I go physically check it because it went on and off for a second? Because you can plug in and then tap wires, or you could slowly peel back. And there's some interesting port taps that you could do to start sniffing the lines. Are you going to protect against that? I don't know. Depends where your threat model goes. I'm not as worried. If you're physically in my house, plugging things in, as my studio is at my house, or if you're in my building and you've breached other physical security layers to get to my wiring, I probably am thinking a lot differently about the risk model. It's not something that happens too often with limited exception. That I know of, there's no timing rules in Tailscale, but you could always create some type of blocking rule for it, I imagine. I don't know why I would want that, though. I guess you could also just start and stop the service with a cron job on Linux. So, oh, it's Saturday. Let me fix that. It says Sunday because I'm always copy and pasting things. I'm glad someone pointed that out. There we go. Save. I don't know. Oh, stream started. Can't change. Oh, well. I can't change it now. It's too late. It's now says it's Sunday. Sunday already. Sorry to disappoint people. Best is a very subjective thing. So CE is fine. There's still patches, so it's still being maintained. There's not a whole new version. There's just not any new features. That's where people get really concerned, is that they're not seeing new features, but I mean, it is what it is. You kind of make the choice. I did the video recently comparing UniFi and pfSense, and UniFi is a solid option. They finally have fixed a lot of the issues, but I put that whole list together, and there's still more things coming for UniFi, but it's a good choice to do either one, whether it's pfSense or UniFi now. Yes, definitely some zone-based firewall rule videos coming. New to your channel, and haven't seen all my videos. Thank you. You haven't seen all the videos. You love them, but have a suggestion if that fits on a rack and sole purpose firewall and VPN. I'm trying to avoid UniFi. You're trying to find a rack mounted firewall. I mean, these there's plenty of those on Amazon. If you're looking for something cheap, I don't know what your budget is. So, like these exist, but I don't know what you're looking for exactly. But one U rack mounted, what CPUs in there? Intel C7. I mean, I'm not recommending this particular one, but they exist. Without knowing more context of what you're looking for, what do you think of OpenWRT? I've played with it, and I got aggravated immediately by not having it load. So I didn't feel like putting any more time into it. I found forum posts that said, "Oh, it doesn't like this hard." It didn't. So it used to work on the Zima, but some update broke it on the Zima, and so it didn't want to work loading on the Zima. And I got aggravated and said, "Okay, I'll load it on something else," but something else I haven't got to yet. I want to play a little bit with it just to poke at it, but I know it's not near as feature complete or near as polished as like pfSense. I want OpenWRT to be more successful. Like the fact that they have a board that they're offering now, which is kind of cool. And I don't think it's a bad firewall system. It seems to be pretty actively maintained. Hey, Tom, I have 2 1 gig PPoE connections as WAN from ISP. I would like to run just 1 cable instead of 3. Should I auth and VLAN or VLAN? I don't deal with PPoE, so I don't know the answer to that. Oh, I see IX Systems Chris is in here. Use 8012x auth. It's not a bad idea. That's one of the ways you can do it. This is me catching up with, or Chris replying to what I said earlier about worried about VLAN 1 and management and threat modeling. So yes, if you start doing full auth, now you've mitigated the threat of someone plugging in. I think so. I don't know. I didn't test that particular aspect of that. Yes, it's Sunday somewhere. Briefly expand on LogSeq. I use LogSeq as my tool for notes, and I use SyncThing to sync those notes. I don't know what the question is. It's nice that UniFi has woken up to the multi-year complaints about their firewall. Right. if you're looking for a replacement for like VMware Horizon or Citrix, I can't remember what the Citrix one is called. Someone will put it in the comments. No, I don't know any good open source ones. I mean, technically things like Guacamole exist, and you could use Guacamole to tie as an interface to something else. There's not like a drop-in replacement for VMware Horizon. I'm assuming you mean pfSense, and there is Saracata, but it may not work as good as you think for actually doing that. Yeah, I think it was called Citrix Zen Apps or something like that. I'm seeing if someone has a write-up. There is a few. Virtual desktops integrated with the Apache Guacamole project. There's people have some write-ups on it. I was just curious if someone had actually written that up. So, I mean, it's not turnkey at all. It's like we could glue these things together and build a thing. Yeah, Zen App and Zen Desktop. That's what those were called. Thank you for the donation. And you have a question about the packages of pfSense. What do you recommend on filtering malware and antivirus? By the way, thanks for your help and support. There's not really anything good that does that. The problem is, in today's world, thank you for the Let's Encrypt, which is a Linux Foundation project for doing this. We have now gotten to a point where the majority of websites are encrypted. That's wonderful. That is bad for firewalls that would like to do traffic inspection, because pfSense doesn't really have any facilities to unravel that traffic. You know, years ago, you could use a squid package. It's been properly deprecated, even though it still exists in a package list. So scanning and doing that at the firewall level for threat protection just isn't particularly effective anymore. And it's also such a burden for a firewall to try to unravel all the encryption. So there's not really any good way to do it. Your best bet is protecting the endpoint, because the firewall is mostly blind to the encrypted traffic that passes through it. So focusing on your endpoint, if you're running Windows, honestly, for home users, Windows Defender works really well. If you're running Linux, don't load third-party packages. And, it's better. I mean, there are rabbit holes you can go down that are very complex for setting up. I've done a whole, I was just talking about this recently because someone had asked about it. I have a video talking about running share it real quick. But I have a whole video talking about running your own self-hosted SIM and security and logging, but it's a great deep dive. I don't know that it's something I easily recommend for anyone to do. I haven't tested it, so I don't have any opinion on the minis forum. People seem to like the minis forums. They seem to be reviewed favorably, but having none of them in my hands or in my lab, I don't know. Is network security also dead? Should people going zero trust model? I mean, honestly, if you look up NIST and their definition of zero trust, it's you don't authenticate by position in the network. So if you're inside my network, for example, and you've plugged in next to me, you've connected to my Wi-Fi, and you're on the same network as my computer, you won't get far because everything is locked down. Matter of fact, because not everything needs to talk SSH, I'll go as far as anything I care about securing when I have SSH, I will also have firewall rules, so only I can access it from the computers I will potentially access it. If you really take the time to build your network to follow principles of least privilege, your life's a lot better. Even on things like publicly host, like a UniFi server. If you were to come in from that UniFi server, what would you do if you got into it for lateral movement? Well, you'd find yourself kind of bored going, none of these other servers on the same network even talk to me. That's correct. We've locked them all down. They only accept SSH from there. Matter of fact, even the web ports, because they have a web interface, they don't talk to anything but the reverse proxy that they sit in front of. That way, I've limited again. If you were to scan my network, you're like, well, there's nothing here. Yeah, because they don't need to talk to each other. You take the time to build principles of least privilege, get all the way into a zero trust model where everything's authenticated based on the user. And we are seeing, like in the enterprise world, slowly, and mid-market worlds too, everything's going to more user-based authentication. Yeah, this is its own nightmare of managing certificates. You don't want to do that. There are tools on some of them that do sandboxing like that. What do you back up or recover? M365 Google Workspace. Veeam is the answer for that for the business side. But I really like Synology solution too, so we do some of that as well. Even my own environment is backed up with Synology. Well, there's a reason when I say zero trust, I say please refer to the NIST definition, because too many people tell you, I always like the kind of salesy pitches I get where security is a journey, not a product. By the way, buy my product for your security journey. It's called zero trust, but zero trust is defined by NIST. It's also defined differently in the marketing world, which can drive you crazy. Well, at least anyone who's technical will be driven crazy by it. The same thing goes for SD-WAN. I 100, like when people say I'm looking for an SD-WAN solution, what are you actually wanting to do? First, let's talk about the problem you're trying to solve before we inject marketing into this. Yeah, the firewall router, I mean, it's still a perimeter, but it's not the security perimeter. It's just a perimeter for routing traffic. With so many people working from home, and so many things going to single sign-on, that's where we manage things. We have, I think we counted one time, I think there's 38 different portals that our staff can log into for all the tooling we have that manages the business. But that's so much of it's all just secured, because I think almost all the vendors, it's one of those things whenever we're looking at a vendor for something, we build it all around a single sign-on ecosystem so we can control it. We control the access tokens. And if you're doing it properly, you set those conditional access tokens in your environment to be very short-lived. They live a workday, and that's it. That way, if someone were to even steal tokens, because that is where the target is, stealing not your identity exactly, but your authenticated self is what they try to steal now. So they want your access tokens. And if they only are set to last 8 hours, they're also not interesting to keep, because you have 8 hours to action on this. Um, Outside of TrueNAS and Synology, I mean, what we sell TrueNAS and Synology, so I don't. I mean, do we have clients that are using other things? But my preferred is going to always be TrueNAS and Synology. There's a bunch of them out there. Um, NetApp is popular. They're wildly expensive compared to TrueNAS and Synology. Strong passwords and 2FA. All the security in the world doesn't offset these. Well, the problem is it's strong password 2FA, and how long are your session tokens set to last? That is a big talk at the place I was just at, the event I was at. CodeMash is for developers, and I followed most of the security track for the talks I went to. And that's a big topic, was how you build access, how long should those session tokens live for, all the authentication and how you should integrate it. That was some of the really good talks I went to, is thinking about that. I also went to ones on secrets management, but it's not just having the 2FA. And Linus is an easy person to point to. How did Linus's channel get hacked? First, he wasn't following principles of least privilege because a salesperson had access to the full control over the YouTube channel. That's not good conditional access. YouTube does have granular control over it. For example, Matt is someone that works for me, and he has control over my YouTube channel, but not full control. There are certain things he can't do, but he does have the ability to list unlist videos, so that could happen. He does have the ability to upload videos. But second, a salesperson got their access token stolen because they got phished. So somehow something got through. They sent some, I think they said it was a PDF, where they thought was a PDF. Someone had emailed a salesperson to follow a link or click on something. But by grabbing those access tokens, they're able to impersonate. That's how they get around, so to speak, 2FA, because they're stealing a copy of your authenticated self. I'm hoping for some genius to show the world how we get rid of our 100 plus browser tabs. This is actually a solution I'm going to be covering with one of my friends who fully implemented this in a big environment, not a huge one. It's a city though. So it's they moved 100% to YubiKeys for this. And the too long didn't watch solution is actually kind of clever. Every time a YubiKey is provisioned, two are provisioned. One is kept in a physical locked safe with very few people who are allowed to access this locked safe. And there's a name attached to each one of those. So if for some reason an employee loses their YubiKey, there's a way for them to still log in. For the most part, no one statistically, and this has been going on for a while, and we're going to do this in the video. It's not just that he implemented. We're going to talk about what it looks like implementing it over time. That's why I'm waiting on doing the video. But when I do the video with them, we're going to talk about, how often he's had to even have users. I think they got 70 users. So, it's not 1,000 users, but isn't a sample size. Like, how many times does the average worker lose their YubiKey? And so far, he told me it's been really going well for that. So YubiKeys do work for that. So using that for authentication, it's not been bad. How do you manage session tokens? I think we have them set to 8 hours. I'm not the specialist on that, but I'm almost positive our current session token, because I got to log in every day. So I think our session tokens are all set to like 8 hours. I don't know why. Follow the guidelines and leave it at default. I leave it at default and it works. There is a write-up inside of pfSense. There's a help file about what, and there's a help file that explains it, but even more so, if you search some of the wording in that, you'll land on the kernel discussion of the really nerdy details for why. I forget which one's the default. I leave it at the default and I don't have problems. So whether it's on or off is something I can't remember at this moment, but I will tell you, I leave it at that same default. How do I feel about the performance of the UBNT? It's been good, provided you have their faster systems. I have, which one is this? I'll pull it up. I don't even know what model this is. So the UNVR Pro is relatively fast. That's what we're using at work. I don't really have a ton of cameras on it, but it works fine to scroll through things. I know we tried the other ones and it wasn't quite as good, but I'm doing this over a VPN and you're seeing it pulls up relatively quick. We'll jump to detections. Yeah, there's employees coming in and out. There's me. I know who that is. Never mind. But yeah, it looks like it might be my son. Yep, that's my son. You can see I'm jumping around pretty fast, but I've got good drives in it. I've got the whole RAID array, so I don't find it bad at all. It's hard to, yeah. My overall feelings have been pretty good on it. You're not wrong. I see you deploy thousands of AP switches, firewalls, all kinds of environments. Misconfiguration. This is something that I've said a lot. Go with the system because if you hand a bunch of people who are really familiar with one platform and you just tell them, here's your other platform, they're likely to make mistakes. It's going to take a while before they really grasp how all of it works. Start with what do some training. Misconfiguration across any platform, doesn't matter what the product is. It's one of the, as a matter of fact, there's a personality type that I can only describe as anything I don't know how to use sucks. There's definitely a lot of those technicians. I can't help it. They just exist in our ecosystem. Technical people who, oh, you're using that, it sucks. Why? Well, I don't know how it works. And the number of people that perhaps maybe even some work for me, that will start out by telling me they don't like UniFi because it doesn't support this, this, and this. I'm like, it has supported that particular feature for years. They'll just say it doesn't support something. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't support it? It is because they've never taken the time to look. They don't want to change from the product they have. So that is unfortunately what happens with a lot of people. It's really weird. The technical people I usually get along with the best are never like that. The technical people I get aggravated by almost always are locked in to a non-statistical thing in their head. And when I say non-statistical, it'll be like this one time in 2006, my Western Digital hard drive failed. That company's dead to me. It's 2025. You think they make different products now? Doesn't matter. They're dead to me. And I'm like, okay. Like when new data is presented, I change my mind. They do not sometimes. When you recover from Veeam from M365 and Google Workspace, does it include conditional access, use your email filter rules, and workspace compromise? I don't know. Probably. I think so. I don't use, my company uses Veeam. I am not the person who is the Veeam expert. We have several people that are certified in Veeam. I am not among them, so I can't answer that question. That would be a Veeam question. How do you manage certificates for SSH keys? Is it a tool to make SS keys easier? No, I don't think so. Not, maybe I'm not aware of it. So maybe something does exist for that, but I'm just not aware of it. Someone may have a suggestion in the chat here. Is it worth adding a certificate to the browser so it doesn't complain about pfSense being unsecured access to it? I personally don't think so. And the reason why is I don't spend that much time going into pfSense. So I'm not bothered by it. Obviously, someone will point out it's a security risk because you're not validating the certificate each time. And you should know if there's a change. Okay. I mean, someone could hack into, if someone were to gain access to my pfSense and mess with my certificates, I would notice. But then again, would they mess with my certificates? Is that where they would go? Or would they just start opening up rules to let themselves in? So it wouldn't make any difference. It's not, I don't see it as where my problem would be. So I don't bother with it. If it really, some people are really bothered by not having a certificate in things, way more than me. So if it bothers you that much. Oh, bad defaults. Yes, that is a curse on the industry for sure. I gave Apple another shot since the iPhone 3, iPhone 15 Pro Max didn't change my mind. Greetings, the bearded IT dad. I will admit, this is something oh, good, it's still doing it. This has been a problem. So this is backing up again. Synology broke something in the weirdest way. So right now it's backing up, and I built new backups and the new backups work, but the old backups broke. Now, I don't know who to blame. For those of you that have been following along with what's the latest security findings on the internets, rsync has a lot of bugs, and those bugs are bad. Those bad bugs have led to a lot of updates for rsync, which is wonderful. Great, bugs patched. So I updated rsync, but then hyper backup broke. But hyper backup also received an update because of the rsync bugs. So now I don't know where the problem is. I do know that this backup, my normal Tom backup, broke. It broke in a weird way because if I hit back up, it'll say failed, but it actually does back up the data. It sends the data, but fails. So I started digging into why it fails, and I'll show the error here because I have to go on another screen to show the error. Let me make it big enough so people can read the error. So right here is the TrueNAS running rsync. I did a whole video on how to set this up. All that happened was an update to make this stop working. So when I click and try to run the backup, we'll go here and go here. It gives an error message here that it can't find the config file. Well, normally it says that. But I copy the config file where it thinks it's looking. It's looking at the wrong spot for it. So I copied it to the spot where it's looking for the config file, but it still gives an error, but it backs up every time. So then I deleted the config file and backed up. It puts the config file back and then gives an error that it didn't back up, but it's backing up. It's just failing to write the config file, and I don't know why. But the weird part is if you build a new hyper backup, so that's what these are here, is I built a new one. It works with the new ones. It doesn't work with the old ones. So the old ones are broken. And if you relink it, it breaks too. So I'm just backing up to a new folder and it's solving the problem, which is stupid. I don't know why it's doing it. The Synology error messages are sad. This is the error I was getting somewhere in here. Yeah, error. Failed backup. That's all it says. There is no details. I just probably could have SSH'd in, but I don't know that it would have helped. So I just said, I'm building a new backup job because that solves the problem. It's not the problem I wanted. It's not the way I wanted to solve it, but it was one of those, how much time am I going to do? How much time am I going to put into that? How can I hire you or someone from your team to fix Zen Orchestra, etc.? You head to lawrencesystems.com and you click the Hire Us button at the top. Why are you using Synology over something like TrueNAS? So we sell a lot of Synology solutions, and I've talked a lot about what I run on my Synology. For example, I have Synology Photos. I like it. It works well. And Synology Photos combined with the active backup features. If you watch the very beginning of this, you'll see that this is like, well, yeah, today's 18th. So it successfully backed up my Windows computers. Synology does a great job of the active backup and that. So I use active backup. I use Synology Photos, but this is also a TrueNAS, and the TrueNAS is just where the Synology backs up to. I prefer ZFS like for my file management, but Synology's got some really nice turnkey tools, and I like using them. I use S3 destination for my hyper backup to MinIO, worked over any latency, distance, VPN, etc. Yes, my offsite backups are using S3. My local, because there are two in the same network, use rsync. I find the rsync to be a little bit less intensive on the CPU and go a little bit faster, but that's because these are local. These machines are physically on the same network with each other. That's why I'm doing it that way. Because once everything gets to the TrueNAS, TrueNAS uses ZFS replication to send everything offsite. So all my backups to get things offsite are all done with ZFS replication because it's the most efficient way to get data from here to elsewhere. Yeah, their log messaging is total garbage. Synology works 99% of the time, but when it doesn't work, who knows why it's not working? It's just quicker because it's not. I mean, it's a decent amount of data, but it's not the end of the world. It's just was quicker in terms of I scratched my head about it a few times. I SSH into the TrueNAS. I'm like, the file's not where it says it is. I move the file where it says it is. It gets rid of one error, but it still doesn't want to run the backup. I build a new backup job. It works fine. Whatever. Solution is build new backup job. Any guidance? I'm looking for Synology NAS backup 12 Windows machines with general office usage and less than 1 TB drives. Yeah, I mean, back to one of my, and we've sold a lot of these for this particular solution. I only have one Windows system. Well, I used to have two. One day I'll build a gaming computer again. I haven't played my gaming computer since 12.8. It's been given to a friend. It found a new home, but yeah, besides this, I only have two Windows systems here, but you can definitely back up a lot more. So use the Synology's NAS tool to tell you like how big of a NAS you should buy, but go bigger than even they suggest. I mean, you could back up easily. This is the RS 1221. I've reviewed this one. I've had it for quite a few years, and it's great. This has been a wonderful NAS. Matter of fact, something I have in the drive pools here. I even have caching drives set up to make it a little bit faster. Look at that cache hit rate. This is a read cache only. I don't care about the write caching. 92% read cache. Not bad at all. There's 348 gigs of data cached on SSDs, and then these are 4 spinning drives. So yeah, I'm happy with this Synology. It works really well. Yeah, Synology can back up to TrueNAS using rsync. rsync is in the news. They found some pretty bad flaws in rsync, some high CVEs. Nope, I don't use GFS2 or Lustre at all. Linstore and Ceph are the most popular. There's people out there using it. I don't know enough about it I don't know what percentage using it. I know in terms of what we see out in the market, what we run into, Ceph is popular, ZFS is popular, not clustered, of course, and Linstore is a pretty popular solution. Newbie here using TrueNAS 2410 is the current modern best practice to use SMB shares instead of NFS for everything now, and SC4 dataset permission instead of POSIX. It depends what you're connecting. So for my virtual machine storage, I use NFS. For my videos that I edit that all live on my TrueNAS system here, they're all shared. So if you looked at this, zoom in a little. here's my video archive. This is all done over SMB. But if you go back to the shares, here is the ISO storage and NFS storage for my XO. That is all done with NFS. So the answer kind of comes down to, what are you doing? Cron job management against, like, I guess I don't have enough cron jobs that I need something special to manage it. So I don't have an answer for that. What about Ceph? Can you create VMs in Proxmox and you use virtual drive to test and set up topology? You can use Ceph in Proxmox. I'm not exactly sure, but you can use it. Ceph provides can provide hyperconverged for Proxmox. If that's your question. I am a TrueNAS outsider. Do you use to virtualize? How good respect to Proxmox? The TrueNAS virtualization is functional. It's not near as robust as Proxmox. I don't even have it running right now, but it's basic. You can run some VMs in here. I've got my Debian VM that if I wanted to turn it on, I could start it. I don't have it set to start on boot. It's there if you want to use it. It doesn't have near the features of a full hypervisor. It's not designed to compete with that. How you like the R740? Works. No problem with it. Let's see, what is it doing? Yeah, still doing its thing. No problem with it. Works well. Lots of memory, lots of cores. Do I think Azure Local will overtake Hyper-V? I don't think anyone should be using Hyper-V, so I don't really have much more an opinion on that. I don't like Hyper-V much. I think Jay did a video. Jay from Learn Linux TV has a video on system D timers. Some opinions on TwinGate. It's a proprietary closed source commercial service. It's a commercial product. If you want to use it, Network Chuck seems to get sponsored by them a lot, but I've not used it, so I don't have any other opinion. I just know that people seem to ask me about it because they sponsor, at least the videos I've seen, is they always say, hey, Network Chuck seems to like this. It's a sponsored product for them. So it's not open source at all. I don't really know much about what protocols they use. I don't know what their security is like. So I don't have a lot of opinions on it. Ceph with Proxmox has been pretty killer for your experience in regarding to our data center to a hyperconverged Proxmox cluster. I plan to use my Plex server and TrueNAS and use a GPU and VLANs. Yes, the VLAN part. That I know of. Not from the UI, at least. There's not any way to manage VLANs with your Docker instances that I'm aware of in the UI of TrueNAS. That may be a problem for you. Could you do it from the command line? Yes. Can you do it from the command line? Well, I mean, how much time do you want to spend setting that up? I have, and maybe let me pull this up here. Where'd it go? For example, I have my Docker lab. Even though I run TrueNAS, I set up a separate box just to run Docker. So anything I want to test with or run Docker, or if I ran, for example, Graylog is in Docker, but I like it in its own VM, not with other Dockers. But I guess it could be more efficient and put more things in one VM that had a bunch of them. This is just a way easier way to handle it to me than doing that inside of there. Whoops. This is an easier way to handle it, is having a dedicated virtual machine for all your Docker. So like my Docker lab machine, this is where I play with everything Docker. It's easier. I can attach more VLANs or do whatever I want with it. I can attach more network interfaces if I wanted to set this up. I just don't need them right now, but this is VLAN aware and it can work. Yes, I will be doing some new UniFi. I've been waiting for version 9 before I do any new network videos for UniFi. So yes. Have you ever ordered general servers from Mac Systems? I learned that they were a general system integrator when I set up our new stuff. I don't think we've sold as many of those. We mostly sell the actual TrueNAS boxes, like the M series and the high availability ones. We sold a lot of those. I don't use Proxmox, so I don't know the answer to your question. So yeah, I may not have understood it, but I also don't know the answer. Proxmox forums are probably better. I mostly avoid Proxmox because it breaks more often. Bugs you when YouTubers do videos on things like on things with great documentation like 60 tires. Would love if y'all put your effort in making videos like things we can't just Google. I don't know. I don't understand. It bugs you YouTubers do videos on things with great document. But even the documentation, matter of fact, I think Jay told me he actually helped them fix the documentation. There was problems with it. I remember Jay. I don't use systemd timers. It was novel, but the reason they're stuck in my head is because Jay found a bunch of things that weren't right in the documentation. So I remember him talking about that. I don't know what wasn't right. That is a Jay topic, not a Tom topic. I would like to look up how much companies contribute to FOSS. I haven't found any recent numbers. You can probably see stuff from the Linux Foundation. I think they do some reporting, but I don't think there's a great central authority on it either. There's not like one place that connects data. And the reason why is because where do you draw that line on the way that works? Is it when they contribute to a known project or they contribute to a lesser known project? Who tracks all the lesser known projects? We can track kernel suggestions, for example, but what about someone, and maybe it's a business that's committed to offering open source help, or they do code commits. For example, Tailscale did a bunch of code commits to Headscale. How is that tracked? If I didn't happen to know they did it, how would you put that into something quantifiable on a report? There are some reporting out there for that, but it's not. You can see that there's a lot of challenges for it. You want sub $1,000 servers run Proxmox. I mean, used Dell servers are relatively affordable, unless you're trying to say I want to buy a bunch of them at once for less than 1,000. So, yeah. Did I post a photo of some insane AWS? No, I've not. That exists. You can Google. I believe that's still something they do. Physically have trucks, I guess you could say, with storage on them so people can move data. Oh, I know people I don't like Hyper-V. I know a lot of people that use it. We have clients using it. It doesn't make me like it anymore. Let's see. Sometimes documentation is contradictory. Dell says you shouldn't turn on RTSP on VLT domains, then discover that RTC traverses your domain, and switch goes into loop on power loss. Yeah. You found out your workplace is an XCP-ng house, and they did a whole infrastructure upgrade over one weekend, relatively few issues. Yeah, I really like it. What am I drinking? Water. Yeah, Dell R730 XDs, they're getting a little bit older. They're going to be super power efficient, but they work. The IPMI is really nice. Dell's IPMI is really nice. I would even say the 740s are coming down a lot in price too. Have you had a chance to test SiteMagic, Multi-WAN, or HA? I've tested the high availability. Works great. No problems there. The site, I know a lot of people using it. I personally haven't used it, but try to figure out where did this message come from. 1 second. Someone asked me something. All right, I'll message him back shortly. Anyways, the multi-site manager does work well from anyone I've talked to, but I'm also working on a project later today with a friend where we're switching 38 sites from pfSense over to UniFi. That's going to be fun. So I'm going to get a lot of experience really quick here. Good or bad, I don't know yet. That's the exciting part over the next several days while we do site migrations. The biggest tool for doing large volume data management is usually patience, because it takes a long time. But I mean, if you have to do something in the terabytes of data, if you don't have the connections to do it, matter of fact, there are now certain locations that let you do mass uploads. You can coordinate with some of the hyperscalers and large cloud providers to do that. You got to contact them. Each one has their own method for doing it. If this was almost full when I started, so let's just say I would not be quite coherent if I had consumed that much vodka. You're looking at replacing your parents' Synology router with a unified cloud gateway. They already have a PoE switch and cameras and APs. They still need a unified controller with the gateway. Well, you can buy models that have the controller built in. So you want one of their gateways that have the controller built in. I also don't like the word cloud in the name. Why is it there? It must be involved in the cloud in some way. No, you don't have to adopt it to the unified cloud. That is optional. Do you have a network rack that you recommend that doesn't break the bank? Used racks are cheap everywhere. Honestly, as nice as buying a new one is, if you're going to be more budget conscious, man, you can hit any of those recyclers. Look in your area. There's quite a few recyclers in almost every industrial, or I should say industrial city area. Check whatever marketplaces are available. There's always like businesses that went out of business and someone's like, I don't want this old rack, and you can get them for like $50 but when it comes to new ones, catch them on sale on Amazon. I don't really have any particular recommendations. I'd love to hear your findings you can share. We got 13 sites for Decade appliances. 2 of them are hubs, and all of them have multi-WAN and a VPN BGP. Plus BGP config is a management nightmare. Yeah, we're hoping that it works as well. I mean, because 38 sites is a lot. So, and there's a lot of data moving. This is going to be a fun project. I'll just say that. Buy a white rack. Actually, I do like Techno Tim. He's got that white rack that he uses, and it's pretty cool. I'm still gonna stick with a black rack myself because I have it already, so I could paint it, but I probably won't. I might do, and I know someone will say, are you copying off Linus? And no, I'm not. If you notice the orange in the background, my company logo is orange, and I may paint parts of the rack orange because I want it to look cool. No word on when that'll happen. Oh, I'm definitely putting RGB in the rack. We're all in on the RGB. That part is that's a given. There's already RGB in the rack, by the way, so I think I got a picture of the lights in it somewhere. Maybe. Kind of. The lights are on so you can see it, but the there is some RGB at the top of this. There'll be RGB in it when I'm done. You're looking for a storage solution that works with Proxmox. Really, anything that supports NFS will work with Proxmox. You can use this analogy. You can use a TrueNAS. Those are popular, but Proxmox supports iSCSI. It supports NFS. Either one of those are good options to tie to your Proxmox server. I think the mini racks are novel. I don't know I don't know. I got to play with them myself. I have enough space, so I don't have as much of a need for one, but I do think they're really cool. And I know a lot of people definitely, like, if you're space constrained, I have friends that only have, they live in smaller spaces, they live in apartments, and having a mini rack that suits your needs is pretty cool. So it's definitely novel. Oh yeah, I have, where is my photo of that? Because someone pointed out this is on my rack somewhere. Where is it at? No, I don't know where it's at now. I do have the Gavin special signature. There it is. Or is it? This is the rack. This rack is coming to my studio. It's got a few stickers on it. It's got the Gavin special signature. I have not used fiber channel with XCP-ng. I believe it's supported, but never. I don't have any. I don't think we have any clients running fiber channel either. Yeah, honeypots are awesome. Yeah, I generally have little experience with fiber channel. We have replaced some fiber channel stuff just because they were old, and when they were redoing things, they didn't go with fiber channel again. It just really wasn't worth it to them. We got enough. I mean, someone will go into some deep detail of why they like fiber channel, and I don't know that there's anything wrong with it. I have less experience with it, and the only ones we got rid of, they were just old, and it was time for a hardware refresh. And when we quoted and put in the hardware refresh, we didn't use fiber channel. Have you ever gone on a rabbit hole of home battery system? It is on my to-do list. It's been on my to-do list since we built this house in 2020. What are your thoughts on UniFi cybersecurity versus subscription services from Palo, 40, Cisco? I mean, Proofpoint's a pretty reputable company for that service, but it's a really hard thing to prove the efficacy of, because let's take example, any large company that was hacked that's in the Fortune 500, you can pretty much guarantee all these companies in these Fortune 500 lists that end up in the news for security breaches have those subscriptions. Did they work? Well, that depends. Part of the problem is, and I've talked to some detection engineers about this, the modern threat landscape uses things like Cloudflare tunnels, fully qualified domains that aren't on lists. And the amateurs are definitely stopped because people go, but Tom, I've seen all these things that were stopped, on these lists. I'm like, yeah, the amateurs are always out there. And I think that's what they'll do a good job of, is protecting you against the common threats, the known bad IPs. It's a tricky thing to say, how good is it really? Because if you go back 45 minutes ago when we were talking about security and session tokens, most everything comes through a mail advertising campaign or a phishing. That's where most of your threats come in. And because they're clicking on a fully qualified domain name that's tied to a Cloudflare, will you catch it? I don't know. It's not that I'm saying not to do it. I can't prove how much better the proof point is, or better or worse than those other ones either. I don't know. People are always like, but Tom, you could just download some known threats. There's all kinds of places you can download that from, but they're known. If they're known, they're in the list. So there's not any, I'd have to stand up infrastructure and build a threat. And if I were to do that, if you were asking me to build a threat, I would build it on a Cloudflare tunnel. And I guarantee it'll go right through all of those services, because you can't block Cloudflare. You're going to have a bad day. If you try to say, I'm blocking Cloudflare, you got a problem. Now, I won't get detected until someone reports me that I'm doing something shady with a Cloudflare tunnel. And then they'll look at that fully qualified domain, they'll add it to the list and say, that is a shady domain being used right there. And there's other things that are in there. For example, even with our threat models that we use with our web filtering tools for our clients, if you register a domain today, you'll find you can't get, even if you did all the registration today or even a week ago, I think domains less than a year are a problem that we have to add to our list of allow, because we default deny a new domain added with web filtering, because that's one of the better ways to actually do it. iSCSI over FOCE unless there's a need to continue supporting legacy protocol. Okay, interesting. If you don't know, this is the IX Systems Chris. I know who, if he does a podcast with Chris and Chris do the podcast for the TrueNAS stuff. So for those you're wondering if there's a lot of valid answers coming out of there. Oh, we all end up with lots of interactions with legacy systems. Yeah, and signature IDS in a nutshell, definitely a problem. Blocking Cloudflare or Akamai is a pain. Yes. Yes, also known as Honey Badger on the TrueNAS forums. It's hard. You have to have layers of security, and how much do you spend on each one? Well, yes, people argue with me about that a lot, because I've had people tell me we're doing too much for security. People tell me I'm doing too little. At what point? There's a balance you have to keep, because don't get me wrong, people always ask, what about doing full lockdown application whitelisting? You can do that. You also have to be prepared to manage, if you have a diverse ecosystem like we do of clients that run a lot of specialized tools. And those specialized tools have to all be whitelisted or allow listed to run. And the moment there's an update to any tool, you instantly break things. If you want to tell an accounting firm, we're going to totally protect your systems, we're going to manage all of it, and we're going to do allow listing, so no application will run that's not on the list. And if you've ever dealt with accounting firms, there's a reason I brought them up. Around tax season, there's pretty regular stream of updates that will give you nightmares of how much support problem. And if you want to see a client fire you fast, do allow listing, have an update break something, and have the tax people sitting there trying to deal with their time crunch, at least here in the United States, of deadlines on taxes and punching numbers, and suddenly work comes to a stop on a bunch of places. That ticket better be fixed fast. So yeah, it's a lot. Sage, QuickBooks. What's the really big company? They make they own all the other tax ones. It's called Creative Solutions Accounting. Yeah, application whitelisting or allow listing, like you're describing, is a lot of administrative lift. And by the way, there's a bunch of companies out there that'll tell you it's not. They're called marketing people who try to sell you these products. I know people who use them. Yeah, Intuit, just don't update. Then your accounting stuff doesn't work. Yes. If only it was that simple. It is. Yes. It's so painful. I think we have one or two companies that run SAP. I think. I see where my position is in the company, even though I own part of the company, I just don't do all the things. So I don't always know what they're using because I don't have to deal with that as much. That's the one right there. I was trying to think of the Thomas Reuters stuff. That's ugly. Yeah. Anyone who's dealt with allow listing knows how many tickets that generates. I mean, just think about the tickets that generated. There's a lot of them just from the web filtering problems that we have because we try to keep it relatively safe and locked down. For example, I mentioned like a domain has to have a certain, I think it may be 6 months we've got it set to. Like you can't connect to a domain that was registered less than 6 months ago, but sometimes companies do that. But then we have tickets that open and we don't want to disrupt work. So we try to be very on top of those tickets, but it is a lot. Dealing with bank cores is annoying with that. Well, the other stuff that is interesting around that is the movies that we deal with, like the movie companies, production companies. Man, they have a whole lot of, they go down to egress filtering. Egress filtering is fun. It can be done. It just requires management. Have you run pfSense or Tinsor in AWS? I need network interconnect with one or four vendors. Cheapest way to do it is via cloud provider. pfSense works fine in Azure and AWS. We've had a couple times when people are using it. I wasn't the one to set it up. It was just we were consulting on another pfSense aspect, but that is something they were using, and they seemed happy with it. I have no idea what the roadmap looks like for UISP. I don't use it, so I can't really answer that, and I don't have any personal insights into it either. Clients ask us to do egress geo-blocking and a bunch of Microsoft 63. So yes. If only GeoIP databases were 100% accurate, we could make this really easy. But turns out they're not. Anyone who says, "Oh, you'll just GeoIP block," until you actually do it, you're like, "Oh, this is yeah." So IPv4 exhaustion is a real thing, and companies buy fractional blocks that used to be somewhere else and are now in a new place, and there's not a GeoIP update for that, and that can be fun. So yeah, there's a lot. You got to figure out where to draw the line, what is reasonable, and go from there. What would be the best UniFi access point to buy for the best download and upload speeds? I would probably say their enterprise one. I don't know what your budget is, though, so we'll start with there. And if that's not your budget, work your way down until your budget is met. How do you test VLAN rules without breaking a client's network? Mostly when I'm setting them up, it's before they becomes the client's network. So I don't understand completely the question. usually if I'm building a network, we're setting it all up and we're validating our configurations. Then the client gets to use the network. I mean, sometimes you're creating rules, but that's just creating rules. Like, oh, look, the client's got another segment over here and it should be on a separate VLAN. So create new VLAN, create rules around VLAN, test and validate rules by plugging a device in if need be, and away you go. Do you think VXLAN are coming for pfSense anytime soon, 1 to 3 years? I don't think so. I don't think that's on their roadmap. I don't see a lot of people. I mean, VXLAN's got use cases. Don't get me wrong. VXLAN solves some problems, but I don't think there's a ton of pfSense users that are also demanding VXLAN be the solution they need for the problem they're solving. For example, if we go over here, the ability to create VXLAN here inside of XCP-ng, I can create VXLANs between things, but pfSense doesn't have to be aware of it. And so I guess it kind of depends on how you're trying to solve the solution. I mean, if you want pfSense to be involved in a VXLAN, now you have a problem because it doesn't have native support for it. So it depends on how you're going about architecting the thing that you're trying to do. I don't feel like it's on their roadmap. I don't know. Yeah. Peer your pfSense into your overlay utilizing standard Ethernet IP multi-vendor VXLAN is kind of a nightmare. There was a good, for those of you that don't listen to it, or maybe you do, I will suggest the latest episode. Where's it at? I'll find it on my website. Go to my website, go to Creators We Love, and you'll find the Art of Network Engineering podcast. Their latest episode. Do they have an episode list here? Episode. There we go. Hey, look. VPN and VXLAN. And they talk about some of the fun challenges that comes with multi-vendor VXLAN setups because, yes, there's a standard, but did they follow it? Yeah, fun stuff. I mean, I like their content because there's they do some deep dives on those things. And just by coincidence, their episode from what day was that? January 15th. So 3 days ago, 4 days ago, if you read that this says Sunday somewhere. We want to simulate a client network with pfSense and need to simulate client DNS servers as well. Just do another smaller subnet with separate IP interface was in mind. Yeah, I talked about this in my lab video. So I have a video about building labs, and you can simulate clients' full public IP space. It's completely doable. You can assign public IP addresses to what you would consider the LAN side of pfSense, and it works. And you can set up, I built many client networks that way where we simulate their IP ranges before we send them out. Because what we'll do is we'll take the client's devices, such as this. Got one sitting here. So I can take this, before I send it to a client, I will configure the WAN with their IP address by using my upstream pfSense to assign a public IP to this interface. And then I can have the other one. That way, when they get it, when we ship it, this thing will just be plug into network, plug WAN to WAN, plug LAN to LAN. We put little stickers on it. We make sure it's very, very clear. Our term we use is called network in a box. Network in a box means the box you open, you plug into your network, and it works because we've tested, set it up, and validated all of the system. People like that, and I like it too. Do you know how much easier life is when you can ship something that has a bunch of labels on it that the client can just plug in and works, and you don't have to walk them through, all right, we had it set up this way in our lab. You're going to have to go in and change these settings, cross our fingers. especially when frequently we have access to the previous equipment. So we'll log into existing equipment and we will validate that all those settings are exact. And then we put them in our system and then we make sure our system matches. And it's just a good testing methodology. But I need more water. So I'm going to pause for a moment to get some water. Let me figure out where that little, where is these media assets? There we go. I will load up the be right back because I'll be right back after I get some water. There we go. See a few more comments coming in. Let's see. People talking about NAT. Share this tab instead. The backup is almost done here. So this makes me happy. 70% finished. Slowly getting there. This is only connected at 1 gig, but I don't know. These Synology problems are dumb. I'll message Synology about it, but in the short term, I wanted a solution. I hate that the solution is building a new backup, but whatever. see. What else am I going? I'm trying to figure out what else I was talking about. Close all these windows. Art of network engineering. Firewalls. We were talking about VXLAN. Use Synology Cloud Sync to Backblaze, and pretty sure we found a bug. Ooh. I mean, Synology's at least good about fixing bugs. My general experience has been good with them for that. Yeah, I'm going to do more testing with the storage backups. I liked it so far. I didn't experience the problem that a few people said where they had slowness. I don't know if maybe it's because I'm closer to a storage node or like the geography of it works out better, but I'm going to try and test it like here. I'm going to try and test it at my, I'm in Detroit area. Our other office is in Toledo. So maybe I'll try like backing up from here and restoring in Toledo to see how it works. But I do have it working here quite well, where I've been using it for testing S3 backups with XCP-ng. Seems to work fine for that. No problems. Virtual IPs are when you want an interface to have more than one IP address. They call them virtual IPs. That's a common use case. You'll use them as well when you're doing high availability. I mean, you can create rules for them. I might. I think it's spelled differently, but I know what you're talking about. Oh, that's interesting. So if your sync isn't finished and Synology box rebooted, sync doesn't restart without having a manual stop and restart the sync. Huh. Interesting. So you didn't have any problems with it. I mean, if you're looking for a 2U NAS, I don't know. There's a lot of good U stuff out there. TrueNAS is the most ideal software, definitely better than the QNAP stuff. So you haven't had any issues either. So I just seen a couple of people on commenting on that video telling me it was slow, and I'm like, my speeds seem reasonable. But then again, maybe they have, I don't know how fast their connection is because YouTube comments are often not very long or in depth. Because there's times this is a challenge people are starting to run into, is they have really fast internet connections, but some services probably throttle at what speed you can actually download from them. So they're like, I have a 2 gig internet connection, but whenever I connect to these services, they seem to throttle me to 600 down. Well, 600 down is more than a lot of people have. So there may be some throttling to that. It's going to depend on the service. I don't know what that number is in the Storage A world. I want to call it Storage A. Storage sounds like a weird word. I think we'll see these. The challenge is when you start going with the NVMEs is running out of PCIe lanes. So they usually end up being on boards that have a processor that has more PCI lanes to actually support that. Oh, that's versus gateway through the regional endpoint. If there's difference, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and I would say the IX Systems forum and IX Systems Chris, aka Honey Badger, in the forums, do a forum post and let people know the details, because that's how complaining in the comments of YouTube with very little details is very unlikely to solve the problem you may be experiencing. Talking to developers in forums, that is a wonderful way to engage the community and get a problem solved. We got them to settle on storage A because we wouldn't stop pronouncing it that way. That's funny. And I agree with you. I mean, I think if I say storage, I sound like I'm sounding, I would say, is it Norway? I don't know. I'm sorry. I only speak English. I know many of you are bilingual. What does the word, by the way, we should look this up. Let's Google Translate. What does storage have a meaning somewhere? I'm just curious. Is there a conflict here? Google thinks it's a Corsican word for history. Okay. And it means it does have a Norwegian definition of large, according to Google Translate, which I'll admit can be wrong about things. Oh, okay. Chris is in, he's in the Lawrence, he's in my forums as well. So yeah, put your storage on storage. My English tongue does not like that word very well. It doesn't roll off the tongue. Do you really need terabytes? Do you really need terabytes of data for local S3 storage? Makes sense as a secondary backups. Storage could make S3 like Wasabi seem cheap enough, not having to deal with on-prem. I mean, on-prem, the reason you deal with on-prem is because of cost. It's not cheap to put terabytes and terabytes in the cloud. There's a cost to it. I think the pricing's very reasonable on the storage A. Find their pricing calculator. But this is the problem. I mean, what's reasonable to you? You know, that's go away. I gotta hate these. Please, anyone who thinks this is a good idea to have something pop up and bug me, stop. So 200 terabytes for, we'll say we're barely downloading. Let's say we're just backing up and we haven't had a need to really download much. Not a likely scenario. You always have some downloads. There's also some traffic back and forth. So maybe we'll put this at some small number, but I don't know, 10,000 a year for 200 terabytes. Is that reasonable? Even with my YouTube stuff, I think I've got like 40 terabytes of data. That's $3,000 a year. Do I want to spend $3,000 a year to store my data somewhere else? Reasonable is a very subjective, what's reasonable to you may not be reasonable to me. Yeah, egress fees. Storage in Danish is, I don't know if I can say that word. Bevaring? I don't know. That is an interesting word. Yeah, I mean, having a third copy in the cloud, nothing wrong with doing it. It's just, there's a cost. You have to be able to say, this is a cost I'm willing to spend. At what stage do you need to consider a firewall with vendor support, or was you comfortable running Netgate pfSense firewalls in data center? You can get vendor support with Netgate firewalls. We do put and have put recently within the last 30 days or less. We just put a pair of Netgates in a data center. So absolutely, we do that. These all live in a data center now. I never said that. Do you like this website on the first page? Yeah, I just want to do a thing on your website. I don't want to be annoyed by pop-ups of please let me talk to you. No, I don't want to chat. I'm trying to move your little sliders around to figure out how much this costs. Yeah, tape is an option still. I don't know. I don't trust. We have clients. So full disclosure here, we have clients who do trust tape. So all opinions are Tom's, not necessarily like the client asks for solutions. Where did it go? I got a picture of it somewhere in here. There we go. Yeah, we put these in for a client too. They have a bunch of LTO9s. I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is true. We get all your data. Do you want it back? Sure, pay us. You're gonna do, which is less money, the ransomware or the egress fee? Someone's getting paid here. Those are the new 8300s. Don't want to paste the URL without asking. But the short version, we have a partnership with TrueNAS and storage. You're looking on-prem cloud backup combo, egress fees included. If you message, I don't care if you post the link, but it won't let you post the link because YouTube filters third-party people that aren't me posting links. So if you send it to me, I'm more than happy. You can post it in my forums. You can send it. I don't know. If you know how to signal me, my signal is actually on the site, or email me the link and I'll throw it in here. So if you do that quickly, because I plan to wind this down because my friend's about ready for me to start that project where we're going to move, we're going to migrate off of pfSense 35 sites. Tape is good if you got the manpower to manage it. They're also not cheap. Yeah, it's not a cheap solution. Have I tried SAN over DWDM? I have not. Yeah, my signal's at the bottom of my website. If you go to lawrencesystems.com and send it over Signal, because then I'll see it pop up and I can click and make it go. You're migrating off pfSense. So it's a little more complicated than that. The current head end of this network, there's 35 or 38 VPNs. 35 of them are from UniFi. 3 of them, I think, are from pfSense. They currently go to a pfSense. So it's a combination already of UniFi. We're going to swap the head end of this network over to be a full setup using UniFi top to bottom. So it's going to be interesting. Yes, matter of fact, that people have been getting them. There have been pop-ups where people told me they got them, like a bunch got in stock. There's just so much demand on their product. It's been a challenge. I realized when I was scrolling through, was it here? Yeah, I do have RGB in one of my racks. Well, that's interesting. Huh. That's weird artifacting that it did. That's just weird artifact. That doesn't actually look like that. Look at the weird kind of. I'm easily distracted sometimes. Oh, this is kind of cool too. I've been testing these. They're pretty cool. So many things. Oh yeah, well, this is all stuff we're going to make videos about. Definitely. Don't all nerds have some form? Yes. Yes, pretty much. Except, there we go. So I'll share this link for the backup things. So I'll throw this in here for people to click. So yes, the TrueNAS people are pretty awesome. If you didn't know, we're a TrueNAS partner. So by the way, that's how I know some of the fun TrueNAS people. Me and Chris were on a sales call together. But yeah, they have some specialized deals for doing things. So that's the link that Chris had mentioned earlier. Well, IX Systems brings some good HA solutions to TrueNAS. I mean, they have the HA solutions. I've done reviews on these. If you go to the pull up their page, products. There we go. They have some pretty awesome high availability systems that you can get. So I've reviewed them, but they do make high availability systems. Matter of fact, I mean their NVDIMM and NVMe acceleration, they are really fast. When you need high performance storage, we just sold one of these recently. I don't know, I think it was an M series. I can't remember. I'm planning on doing a project video where I will have the bill of materials in front of me so I can say exactly which system we did and the configuration we did it in. But yes. Sync thing is also really good for async replication over WAN and reduced bandwidth links. Yes. You know what we should do, and I know that Chris is listening right now. Me and Chris should, and if the other Chris wants to join, we should do a dedicated TrueNAS live stream. Set one up for doing Q&A. Email me, and we will make that happen. So I'm all for it. Yes, I think we all want this. I would like this in my home lab as well. But yeah, no, we could do a live stream together where we could just do a bunch of Q&A for TrueNAS things. Like I said, I'm down for that. Because I've been a long time. I mean, I've been using TrueNAS since it was FreeNAS, and I think the version I loaded, I know I used 9. I'm trying to remember if I was using it. When did 9 get released? I think I was using it before then. When was version 9 released? 2016. Oh, I was definitely using it before then. Oh, 2013. So here is the 2013 release. That sounds more right. Because I feel like I started getting into TrueNAS right. Because let me think. Yeah, I feel it was about the right time. Around 2010-ish, 2011. So that kind of tracks. Because I remember when 9, that was that had been a while. Now, not as long as Chris. He's got the 0.0. He got the 0 in front of when he started doing it. Yeah, TrueNAS used to be the enterprise version, and all the free versions were FreeNAS until version 12. And then there's this weird gap called 10. We'll just pretend 10 never happened. That's the community answer. 10 didn't happen. We went from version 9 to version 11. then version 12. And now we're going by the TrueNAS scale switch to doing 24, so it's the year. So the next version of TrueNAS will be 25. I don't know when the release date is for it, but it's now year month for the release cycle. Oh, no. We all want to forget Corral. Tom did a video on Corral. Tom has unlisted the video on Corral. I probably still have it somewhere. I keep things for nostalgic reasons, but I may unlist them for other reasons. .2504 will be the next release. Beta in February. Yeah, I usually try out the beta versions. I got a lot of backups, so I don't mind. And that's how I get good at this. I want to try cutting edge, because we do not put production clients on cutting edge. We put Tom's production systems on cutting edge. Then we put the lab on cutting edge. And we actually have some stuff internally we run that we'll put on cutting edge. So I don't mind doing the testing, because testing is how we find out what doesn't work, which then we report back to the people who fix the things that don't work. I always feel for a while there, a lot of the problems with TrueNAS scale were usually related to some of the applications, which means it affected us less from a production standpoint. Because back to the fancy box that we were talking about earlier, when we sell these to clients, we're not loading applications on these. They're dedicated storage devices. There's very little application work being done on these. Almost always they're targets for virtual machines. They're tied to an Active Directory system. So that the use cases are a little different in the enterprise space that we work in. Yeah, this is, I want to say I learned iSCSI. I mean, I knew what it was. I never used it until I started using it in FreeNAS, like the FreeNAS / TrueNAS. That's how I got into getting good at iSCSI. I've never been good at setting it up from the Linux command line, so maybe that takes my nerd cred down a little bit, but they always made it easier to use it through the web interface. Do I hire publicly? I don't know. Like, are you wanting to hire me, or you want me to hire you? We do job postings under the name CNWR because that is the IT side of the company. We hire, if you want to hire me, same thing. You can hire from CNWR. You can hire, you're always hiring CNWR in terms of like for IT services. I haven't had any problem. I've got some AMD systems that work perfectly fine. I just updated this one 10 hours ago. It was just 1 point version behind. This is just a backup server, but it's running AMD, and it's giving me no problems at all. What processor's in this one? Nothing amazing. We had it. It's not exactly a powerful system. It's one of those, it was laying around. Oh, that's true too. I forgot about that. Yeah, I don't think we've sold it. I don't think any of the ones we have are AMD based. We've sold to clients yet, but yeah. What do you think of Ubiquiti's NAS solution with your ability to remotely access your instance? Wouldn't this open a door for them to browse all your files? Well, if you choose to use their cloud instance, you should decide whether or not, before you click the yes box, you have to decide if you trust it. Do you trust Ubiquiti? The answer is yes or no. Does it give them the option to get into your NAS? Yeah, if you tie it to their cloud instance, you now are allowing them to hold a set of keys. That is a you decision. If you find that something that bothers you, then don't do it. It's not, you don't have to connect them to their cloud. If you do connect them to their cloud because you like the easy file sharing, the same thing goes for Synology, by the way. If you use the file sharing stuff with Synology, there's an ability for them to log in at that point. You have to decide if you like that or not. Oh, let's see. Is Detroit pizza as good as the hype? I'll go with yes. Is there a way to get close to real-time data use for each client when users are connected to the captive portal in pfSense? I don't know. I kind of brought up the rsync vulnerabilities earlier just to talk about them in general, that the rsync updates caused. Oh, this actually finished. Awesome. So the rsync updates broke my Synology in a weird way. I just had to create new backups jobs because I don't know. But good news is they fixed. But this one's broken after the rsync update, but this one's not, and they're the same thing. I created new ones and pointed them again. I don't know. But yeah, the definitely, if you have rsync, you should patch it. Second for Detroit pizza. Detroit pizza is amazing. We're going to get off topic for a second here, but I mean, if you come to Detroit, get some Detroit style pizza. It's specifically, let's get more. You want to buy your pizza from Buddy's Pizza, the original Detroit pizza. So Buddy's Pizza, which by the way, they started selling it now, so you can get it. It's actually good. I've been pretty happy with it. But the original, Adam Ragusa is a food YouTuber. He's done a video on Buddy's Pizza. So let's see. New York pizza, Detroit pizza, North American pizza, Italian pizza, Chicago pizza. Look, Detroit pizza. I'm just saying. You talked about ZenOrcs and XCP-ng a while ago, and I just popped in another video from a month ago. How are you feeling around Proxmox? Still happy? KH user, we're curious to hear. Me and we're going to get together with IX Systems, Chris, and Honey Badger, but we have opinions. And I've seen enough broken Proxmox that Proxmox seems to need a little bit more care and feeding than XCP-ng. Proxmox is less appliance and more Debian with a lot of cool features. And don't get me wrong, I'm not dogging on Proxmox to say it's a bad product. It's a very different product than, or platform than XCP-ng. So I think it's good, but I'm going to do some updated videos on it. And it's not to tell you not to use it. It's just to understand what happens when you're using it, or how updates go, and how CoroSync works at scale or sometimes doesn't, and how having a lot of systems all try to be their own independent system and then synced with CoroSync can cause some problems. So it's not that it's bad. It's just you got to understand the challenges with it, or that may come from it, or it may come from apt-get update in your network dying because you had a network bond and then a recent update broke it, or maybe an update about a month ago. I've seen problems with it. Out of curiosity, your experience with broken Proxmox has been recently. We've been running it in our DC and use it at home for like 5 years, never had any issues. It seems to depend on the configuration. Like the recent broken one we fixed was because of the way they had the bonding, and apt-get update broke the bond. And then the networking broke on the system. There was no way to fix it through the UI. It was a Debian problem, and I forget, some line had to be added. Same thing from going from 7 to 8. There was a bunch of people that ran into problems again. So there's just some different challenges. If you know Linux, you can fix it. That's the problem, though. If you don't know Linux, you are kind of stuck. Versus XCP-ng, we've just smooth sail upgrade version 7, all the point releases, version 8, all the point releases up to 8.3. It's been incredibly smooth without any problems. So yeah, it's not that I think Proxmox is bad, and so much of it, someone said earlier, the biggest problem with people and their complaints about any particular networking vendor, for example, when it comes to the switches, is almost always they don't know how to configure it, don't realize that they're not configuring it properly, and then they blame the product for not working properly. The problem I have with Proxmox, so to speak, is they let you do anything, which leads to people doing anything. If you are someone who's a sane sysadmin who's got a strong working knowledge of Linux, you won't do the insane things that the Proxmox system will let you do. XCP-ng puts a little bit more guardrails around those things, which leads to less people goofing it up. Our work is set up with an HA cluster with 3 separate bond interfaces. It's been rock solid for us. I don't want to diminish your experience. Just to match mine. Yeah, I'm not. There's scenarios, and there was a lot of posts in the forums, and that's why it makes it hard to put together. I know people, and I have friends who have updated and not had a problem, but then there's a bias, obviously, because why do people call us? Not because they don't call us to tell us I have the most beautiful working Proxmox cluster. They go, I broke something when I updated, and how do I get all this data back? As we had someone, and I don't even know what they did to break it. They completely goofed up all their Ceph stuff. I don't know what they did. I know they called me because it was broken, not because it was working. So there's certainly people who don't call me that work perfectly fine with Proxmox. So it's one of those, I don't know. There's not an easy way to do the testing. I don't think it's a bad product. Most updates go pretty well. We've seen, well, I should say my partner, I haven't seen this because he set up a bunch of Windows machines in there and found some other quirkiness, but nothing that was too hard to sort through. Just a lot of quirkiness he found with Windows in there. Eventually, what I want to do at some point, and I might do this soon, and well, soon is February for me right now because of the projects I have. I want to take the same hardware, put a bunch of VMs simultaneously running Phoronix on it, for example. I want to do a bunch of Phoronix load, overload the system, over provision CPUs, put it in a really heavy usage state, get all those stats, wipe and reload the system, reload those same, virtual machines running Proxmox, rerun or running, not Proxmox, Phoronix test suite, rerun it again and see how much of a difference there are. Someone actually did this before, and it was kind of a 1 or 2% difference once you put them all under load like that. But it might be interesting to play with it because people seem to think there's a way bigger difference. For most hypervisors, someone did a report, and granted, this is years ago, and they didn't cover Proxmox specifically. They just covered KVM. They were looking at the hypervisors. The hypervisors weren't that much different from each other in performance. There was not like wild gains. There was like minor gains between like VMware, KVM, and Zen. Well, granted, the last report I seen, it was like done in like by a university. It's been a few years, so it'd be interesting to see that again. I have in the past run Llama. I will probably be running it again in the future. We're gonna do I'm gonna probably do some video topics on there in February. Hello from, I'm assuming, Tennessee. You teach IT and have your students refer to your videos in class for projects. That is awesome and fantastic. So Windows support has gotten better, but there's still some rough edges. Interesting. Yeah, my XCP-ng experience has been really solid, and with all the backups built in, it's just a beautiful thing. Yeah, I mean, like I said, either one's valid for the Homelab environments. I think the scaling is a lot better in XCP-ng as you do some of the larger installs because it can be done in Proxmox, but XCP-ng to me, and someone will point out you can do this with Terraform. Yes, you can. But for example, when I want to set up, these are those 4 blade servers in each one. So 4x4 means 16 servers here. With XCP-ng, load XCP-ng and build your first server, then adopt the next 15 servers, and the config just follows. All 15 servers, all 15 hosts, perfectly configured with no extra steps. And yes, you can do Terraform and Ansible and things like that with XCP-ng. And Proxmox, though, doesn't have exactly the same. Now, if you build the SD-WAN tools in Proxmox, you can build it, but you have to set that up first and then bring them in and build the resource pools. What is the underlying hypervisor in XCP-ng? I thought it was Zen. No, it's Zen. XCP-ng is the Zen hypervisor. Proxmox is using KVM. Use CloudStack for your service offering, and you're using nothing but XCP for hypervisors. Very cool. In your FC, what are the reasons your customers choosing XCP-ng or Hyper-V? I'm currently evaluating both as a VMware replacement. XCP-ng is just better to manage and way less buggy than Hyper-V. I find Hyper-V not to be wonderful, and a broken Hyper-V system is messy. I don't know. I'm also not a fan of tying more stuff to Microsoft. I will say your point about Proxmox requiring Linux expertise is very accurate. XCP is virtualization appliance. Yes, Proxmox is a Debian KVM with a great front end. Yeah, and I'll agree with that. And it's kind of cool because the tinkerer in me loves Proxmox because I can do anything I want. The problem is when you start putting it in business environments, there's always someone who does everything they want or things they really shouldn't have done. So the XCP-ng license is much cheaper than Hyper-V. Yeah. There was a really bad bug last year in Hyper-V that an update just broke a bunch of Hyper-V stuff. I can't remember if it was like February or March of last year, but it's a headache when it breaks because it's all Windows just, yeah. I don't think so. So definitely open source solutions are the best solutions. Have you ever set up cellular 4G interface on a Linux router? No, I have not. So not something I've got much experience with. This has probably been asked and answered, but I'm looking for a multi-cert NVR solution across the internet under one interface, more than 5 NDRs. I mean, UniFi has, when you tie it to their cloud, the ability just to switch between all of them. It's not exactly one interface, but it gives you kind of one control plane for all of it. So I guess UniFi, it kind of does that. I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for, though. I mean, there's that one company, they advertise a lot. I mean, but they're wildly expensive. We've had people ask about them, and because we looked at it, because they kept bugging us to be a partner with them. I can't remember the name of them right now. Someone will say it because they market to my industry a lot. But their cost per camera was wild. Like it gives you one pane of glass at the cost of like $6,000 a month. Like cool. I remember one of the quotes was like, "Wow, that's a lot of money." Yeah, one thing I will say for sure, the Vates team is ever present and very supportive. They're very active in the forums, they're active in the open source community, and they're really good at responding if you have any problems under their contract. Oh, there's a ton of open source and use. It depends which division of the government you're in, but there's a ton of open source in the government. That sounds like it, Verkada. That sounds like the company. Because it begins with a V, but Verkada is probably it. Do you have a video on how to set up XCP-ng? Yes, I do. I have a getting started video with it. But yep, getting started with XCP-ng is the one you're looking for. Yeah, I mean, Verkada sells it. It's just expensive. It's a lot. And they're definitely this. Oh, yeah. These people do not want to get you off that sales demo telling you how amazing it is. And they just talk around that, how much it was. I mean, for the scale this one client was asking for, I was like, that is probably not going to fly with that client. Paying that much per month is not rational to me. Maybe the client, no, well, the client didn't think so either. They never bought it. We never became partners with them. pfSense HA across 2 data centers. That is not how that works. You don't use pfSense HA config. You have a pair of HA firewalls in data center A, and in data center B, you have a pair of HA firewalls, and then you fail over other ways. You don't stretch your pfSense high availability across data centers, if that's what you're asking. Yeah. The three VR died at our branches. They wanted 17,000 for a new NVR. Yep, that sounds like Verkada. Yeah, unlimited marketing budget. Yes. Hey, thanks, Chris. And you got my email and you got me on Signal, so we're good. If you ever want to ping me sometime, and we'll do some scheduling to get those other topics covered. But I'm going to wind it down here in a minute as well. Yeah, I've not heard a single good thing about the Meraki camera systems either. So, I might get around to doing some of those. Yeah, I think undercooked would be a way to describe it. I'm going to get back to doing some of the business videos. I don't really have a release cadence for them. The UniFi video stuff is really nice. It works well. I've talked about it a lot on the channel because it's a good solution. I'm not unhappy. I still have my Synology. Works good. The Synology cameras have been good, but yeah. But I am going to wind this down here. So thank you all for hanging out with me for 2 hours and 17 minutes. Oh, man. This is definitely fun. Open source NVR solutions. None of them are good. I'm just going to throw it out there. I've not found any of them that felt very complete. Maybe it's just me, but part of the problem with NVR solutions is generally people are buying them for not a hobby, but for security. And if you have a kludged together solution of setting some of these up, you kind of run into the problem of not having the reliability. And obviously that kind of, it needs too much care and feeding versus the UniFi stuff and the Synology stuff just work. I trust it. So yeah. Frigate's probably the best of them, but Frigate's not for the faint of heart either. It's not like Frigate's plug these in, adopt these cameras, and set all the settings. Frigate, needs some setup work. It's not a just drop it all in and it works. I think Frigate's cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't play with it, but you make sure you understand it before you try to build it as a solution. Yeah, Motion Eye was so cool, and I'm sad that it went away. Yeah. I think UniFi, you can have UniFi completely local. You do not need to use the UniFi cloud. But if you don't use the UniFi cloud, it's up to you to figure out how do you set up your VPN or however you want to access it when you're off site. This is This is common. I was going to go frigate and gave up and bought an MVR. Yes. I had someone contacted us and they were hoping to get all the frigate stuff set up, and we started quoting prices and they go, I'm just going to buy an MVR. I'm like, if you want us to spend a lot of time configuring your 30 camera system, sure. Yeah, Axis is another popular system. Axis is a lot more expensive, but it's a popular system and it's very dependable, but it's also very expensive. So I don't say it's bad. It's just they charge dearly for it. I don't like Blue Iris because it runs on Windows. Sorry. I mean, if you like Blue Iris, I don't know any other than the fact that it runs on Windows. I don't have a particular, reason not to use it. But I'm going to end this here, or I'll keep talking forever. Can UniFi ingest RTP streams? No, it can export them. That I don't think it can ingest. But nonetheless, have fun, everyone, and take care.